Shabbat Shalom, everyone. I am a daughter of Yeshua Abel Hawkins, and I would like to serve you as a priestess starting very soon. It is now time to start finding your seats for Sabbath services. Shabbat Shalom. I am a daughter of Yisrael Abel Hawkins, and I want to serve you as a priestess starting very soon. Welcome to another exciting service. Please get your pens and paper ready to take notes. Please welcome the great priest of Yahweh.
Please be seated for a few announcements. Attention, attention. All girls ages 10 to 25, first day tomorrow's class will be held at the Lamplight Cafeteria unless Yahweh warms things up. Please be on time because you wouldn't want to miss out on the awesome cooking experience waiting for you and your mother. Please remember to bring a bowl or plate and a spoon or fork. See you there. For the adult Sabbath afternoon class, please bring your copy of the 5th book of Yisrael, next Sabbath, Isaiah 4. For the youth Sabbath afternoon class, please bring your copy of the Peaceful Solution Character Education Program Acceptance Unit from the intermediate series to next Sabbath's class. This Sabbath, enjoy your takeout dinner and supper today at the Lamplight Cafeteria. For dinner, we will be serving okie goat with rice, garden greens, cottage cheese, and peach pie. For desserts, we have cake, ice cream, and okie shodom. The cafeteria will close at 5:30 p.m. sharp and will reopen first day morning at 7:30 a.m. The evening meal will be served in the cafeteria only, starting at 4:45 p.m. We will be serving pizza, desserts, and ice cream. New Moon. Come join Yahweh's family for our New Moon celebration on this coming third day, evening. Samuyl 29. The Clyde Women's Peaceful Solution classes scheduled for that evening will be postponed. The cafeteria will close at 5:30 p.m. after worker meals are served. The concession stand will open at 5 p.m. We will be serving corn dogs with macaroni and cheese. Please remember to bring your own cups and plates. We will have special desserts and ice cream. Our family film will be shown at 5:30 p.m. in the sanctuary. And that's all the announcements. If you all please stand, we'll go ahead and have opening prayer.
If you'd all please raise your hands, Father Yahweh. Our Father in heaven, whose name is Yahweh, this is Son Deacon Barzai. Come to my head, Quantane Ashram, being seed of the last days witness, Yahweh Watkins, and the Son of True Messiah. I pray to allow pastors to get the full use of his conscious mind. I pray to bless the great Khandidia. Please give him release from prison, not only the great Khandidia, but all those who are in your house for being held captive in foreign countries. Please make a way of escape for all those who are in your house who are being held back by the government. Please guide, inspire, and direct us daily. Please bless the food, water, and the air that you provide for us. Help it to nourish and sustain us. Please help us to be a help and not a hindrance to your house and your great work. Please help us to set a righteous example for one another and be servants to one another. In unity with the great body of priests, the pastors, Lebakans, through by the authority of our most righteous Ahab, leader, teacher, king, and guide, Yeshua Messiah. Hallelujah, praise Yahweh.
A most holy and righteous Heavenly Father, Yahweh, this is Samuyl Hawkins, along with this, your family, Father, those that are called by the name of Yahweh, begging permission to come before you as seed of the last day's witness, the great Kohan Yisrael Abel Hawkins, and through our most Ahab and honorable high priest and King Yeshua Messiah. Father, we do thank you for this opportunity to lift our prayers up to you. Pray that the incense that's rising, Father, and our prayers would be acceptable in your sight. And I pray, Father, thanking you for the unity that's being built here in your house in these last days by the instruction of your last day's witness, the great Kohan Yisrael Abel Hawkins. And I pray that that unity, Father, continues to grow. Pray that we take the time to be well-pleasing in your sight, to not be men-pleasers or women-pleasers, Father, but that every man, woman, and child would do all things, Father, to be well-pleasing in your sight. Continue to guard and hedge about and protect Pastor and this family, Father, and we thank you for all that you do, think, and say for each and every one of you, of us, and we ask these things of you and thank you for them, Father, in unity with the body of priests of the house of Yahweh, seed of the witness Israel, and through Yeshua, our most Ahab, high priest and king. Hallelujah, Yahweh. Praise Yahweh.
At this time, it's a privilege and honor to turn the services over to the daughters of Yahweh.
Shalom, everyone. We are in for a power-packed spiritual learning experience. Be prepared to take notes. Please stand as I welcome up our first teacher.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Please be seated. Okay. The title of my speech is Set by Law, Our Path to the Kingdom. Now, I was asked to do a search on the jobs that we would be acquiring as we make as we prove ourselves worthy. And of course, me with my microorganisms, it was suggested that I concentrate on those. Now, what I want to start with is I'm going to start with the 14th book of Israel, part 2, and it's chapter 11, verse 74. It says, Yahweh can do things that you wouldn't believe under circumstances that you wouldn't imagine. Think of the wisdom. Think of the wisdom it takes to create microorganisms, to form an earth from microorganisms, how Yahweh formed it. And then he gave laws to keep it in this place, set by law. Your job is this. Your job is to do this. He says trillions of them, microorganisms, they bring sight to our eyes, they give us our taste, they give us our smell, they allow us to walk, they allow us to think, they allow us to study, they allow us to choose, set by law. Whose law? Do you choose righteousness and Yahweh's laws, which will bring everlasting life? Or are you going to give in to Satan's laws, which brings death and destruction? And what I want to do is, it says, the microorganisms, yes, there's trillions of them in our bodies doing their jobs that Yahweh set by law for them to do. If I could have my first slide, please. This is from the first book of Israel, chapter 28, verse 17. The microbe, as Yahweh created it, is actually man's friend. This is not speaking of the mutants that man has created himself. Now, if we take this a little bit deeper, Yahweh created a male and a female of every species. The male and the female come together in union and they create another species, another copy of their species. Now, if any one of those cells, we're looking at the microorganisms, the microbe size, any one of those cells on either the man or the woman, the female or the man side, is mutated. That mutation is going into that next life. Every single cell of that next life. That is what sin has done. That is what we have to overcome, and that is what we have to change. If I could have my next slide, please. Okay, now you remember this sermon. I remember this sermon and I thought I wouldn't have it, but it's from the 5th book of Israel, chapter 10, verses 43 and 44. It's like those steel beams up there. Remember when he talked about the steel beams? You wouldn't think they're alive, but they are. They are actually moving. If you could make yourself about the size of an enzyme and place yourself on that steel beam, these things will be hitting you in the face and all over your body. We have to look at this on the size of the microbes. Yahweh created the microbes, and he said they were perfect. We have to bring our bodies, our minds, our thoughts, our heart, our choices down to the microbe size so they will recognize us and obey us. Can I have my next slide, please? Now, this is the 14th book of Israel, part 1, chapter 8, verse 77. What if we kill off these microorganisms? It becomes very dangerous. But those microorganisms are what we're going to have to come into unity with. And once we come into unity with Yahweh, those microorganisms will obey us because they know they can trust us. Remember, they have to recognize us. You wouldn't trust somebody you don't recognize, but you trust a friend, a sister in the house of Yahweh who's following the laws. The same thing with the microorganisms. We have to get on the microorganisms level and know that they are not going to trust us if they don't recognize us. If I got my next slide, please. And on the 8th book of Israel, part 1, chapter 13, verses 63. From the dust, we will be able to, anyone who's died, bring that person back in a healthy form and let him start his life or her life again. We will have that power, but only if we acquire it set by the laws that Yahweh has placed before us, the overseer has taught us, and we have to choose. Now, during this study, I came across my books, Education and Prophecy 1 and 2. And it all goes to the 6th book of Israel And you need, if you have the sixth book of Israel, go to the Passover sermons and go to the Tabernacle sermons. If you have the education and prophecy books, use those books, sisters, to start training your children how to teach and how to learn about prophecy. It goes into detail. It helps you with the questions. It helps you with everything. If you don't have the education and prophecy books, go to the sixth book of Israel. Bring up the sermons that are Passover sermons and the Tabernacle sermons. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to the next speaker.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. You can be seated. So if you'll turn your books of Yahweh to page 897, it's 1 Corinthians 14:22. It's a very familiar scripture. It says prophecy is for the believers. And Yahweh gave these prophecies as a light to his house. You cannot understand the true faith of Yahweh unless you understand these prophecies, which show us the history and the end result of Yahweh's work. And these prophecies are a blessing because in these last days, every work of Satan in this deceived world appears to be righteous. And you remember that Satan knows Yahweh's prophecy. She knows that. She knew that if she's able to smite the shepherd, then the sheep will scatter. And if we've been taught this, that she does not want us, the house of Yahweh, mankind, to inherit that position that Yahweh has for us, to be rulership, to have rulership over the creation, all of Yahweh's creation. And so she did. She smite the shepherd, Yeshua Messiah. And in the hands of the Pharisees, Sadducees, Essenes, and Herodians, Yeshua Messiah died. But Yada Iscariot, who betrayed Yeshua Messiah with those 30 pieces of silver, took those 30 pieces of silver back to the chief priest and brought Yeshua back from Satan back to Yahweh. And for your notes, that's found in Psalm 16:10 and Acts 2:27 and Acts 13:35. So in those scriptures, Yahweh prophesied through his prophets and apostles that his son's body will not suffer corruption, through the scriptures that I just gave you. And Yahweh brought his son back to life after 3 days and 3 nights being in the heart of the earth, just as Yana was 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of the great fish. For your notes, Matthew 12, verse 40. What's amazing is the power of resurrection, the raising of the dead back to life. And he did not want his son to be left in the grave, neither did he want his son's body to suffer corruption. And in fact, Yeshua was in the heart of the earth for 3 days and 3 nights. If you see my first gematria there, 3 days, you see that word 3 in the Hebrew 56, to bewail, lament, mourn. And that's what occurred when Yeshua Messiah died. They mourned. And in the 198 in the Greek means to be exact. That is ascertain. That is true that he was in the heart of the earth 3 days and 3 nights, just as prophecy showed he was supposed to be. And then also that being in the grave 3 days and 3 nights proved that he was dead. If you read from Matthew 27, verse 62 through 66, it says there that he was truly dead. We'll read verse 63. It says, saying, ruler, we remember how that deceiver, they call Yeshua the deceiver, remember how that deceiver, while he was still alive, said that after 3 days I will be raised up. So it means Yeshua was dead. And then it also proves that Yahweh had that power of raising the dead. If you see Matthew 28, from verse 1 through 7, if you have time, you can read that. But verse 6 says, but he is not here. He has been raised up, meaning Yahweh raised Yeshua Messiah up. Now for my second gematria, you see the 3 days and 3 night prophecy That first number, 396, it means to overturn. And that's what Yeshua Messiah is going to do, to overturn this government of the people to Yahweh's government. And it's not going to be by force. And 2376 in the Hebrew, it means a sight, look, vision. From 2370 and 2372, prophesy. It was in prophecy. And he fulfilled that prophecy. And he will fulfill that prophecy of overturning this government to Yahweh's way. 2376 in the Greek, it means a window. From 2374, an entrance, a door, a gate. Yeshua Messiah is guarding that gate that's spoken of in Revelation 22:14, seeing who will enter in and who will be left out. And to those who will be left out, they'll be told what Matthew 21:7 says. For my third gematria, the only sign of the true Messiah, the sign of the prophet Yana, 28:05, you see a belt, a strap, curious girdle. It's talking about Yeshua Messiah. And for my last gematria, salvation is the changing of the kingdom. And that proves to excite, to move, to stir up. That's what we are anticipating. That's what we are waiting for, because the kingdom of Yahweh is marvelous. With this, remember that prophecy is for the believers, and you have to understand prophecies to be founded in the house of Yahweh. I'll turn to the next speaker.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Please be seated. Such a blessing to be here on another great Sabbath day, to come to learn more from Yezra Hawkins, Yahweh's Last Days Witness, about Yahweh's plan. Okay, so we know that we're in the time period of the last 3.5 years, and in the midst of this last 3.5 years, 1 year passed already, the time of the last 7 plagues. And in this time period, Yahweh is making a clear distinction and difference between his people, which is us, and those who have the mark of the beast, which is everyone out there suffering part of this first plague, which is part of the 7. And mankind is reaching the end of the 6,000-year anniversary of sin. So what takes place at the end, and who will bring this about? So we know Yahweh's last day's house, which is us. We're the last work, but we're going to be the first to receive the authority Yahweh promised in Genesis 1:26. And we know in Genesis 1:26, Yahweh mentions the creeping things, given authority over the creeping things. And part of that, the creeping things, is authority over the microorganisms to have the power to resurrect. And we know the resurrection takes place at the end of the last 3.5 years that will be cut short. And you can find this in the Mark of the Beast, Part 1, Chapter 10. It breaks this down and shows that at the end, that's when the first resurrection takes place, the resurrection of all those, the righteous men and women of old, those that Yahweh had called out. So if we can go to, we're going to read from the Mark of the Beast, Part 2, Chapter 12. And page 151, the very first thing Pastor says here is the resurrection simply means a restoring of life of one who is dead. And in this chapter, it's a short chapter, but he explains Yahweh's plan from the beginning was to give mankind authority. And it's handed over to us because we live by the every word of Yahweh, just like Yahshua did. He says this same power Yahshua had, he said Yahshua taught that man should live by every word of Yahweh. The same power Yahshua had is the power Yahweh planned for all those who will overcome the temptations of Satan and then live by every word of Yahweh as Yahshua lived. Now, how do we know what every word of Yahweh is? And how do we understand what is written? Because every word, remember Yahshua said, it is written. We live by what is written in the laws and prophecies. But how do we know that? Well, who is the one that sets it in order? Yahweh's last day's witness. He is the one whom Yahweh has given the knowledge and understanding to, and he is also the one who reads. So let's go to Revelation chapter 1, verse 1 through 3. And Pastor's gone over this many times, the sea of glass vision. The revelation of Yahshua Messiah, which Yahweh gave to him to show his servants things which must shortly come to pass, or come to pass in a shortened time, like Yahshua said. And he sent and signified it through his Malach, we know that was our great overseer, to his servant Yochanan, who has testified to the word of Yahweh and to the testimony of Yahshua Messiah and to all things that he saw. Blessed is he who reads and those who hear the words of this prophecy. We know he who reads is Yisrael Hawkins, and keep those things which are in it. That means believe in it without doubting, for the time is at hand. So notice how close the time of the resurrection is. It's at hand, meaning you can reach it. Or like Yahshua said, it's at the very door. Okay? So we can get our gematria. We have the first one. Revelation 1:1, you see there 1074, this message and all these prophecies that will come to pass that were signified through Yisrael Hawkins, through that sea of glass vision. Can we get the next one? We have the Apostle Yochanan. This was very neat. The Apostle Yochanan, the copier, he copied what Yisrael Hawkins told him. You can see their pastor's numbers 828, his date of birth, 1074, his tag number. You can get the next one? We have Yochanan, he copied for Yisrael Hawkins. You see his number there. The books were copied and sealed. Now, they were sealed, like Daniel said, till the time of the end. Now, at the time of the end, we have the one who reads. You see his number? 1074. He's the one who's reading Revelation. Can we get the next one? We have, it is written in Revelation, blessed is he who reads, and those who hear the words of prophecy. That's us. That's our job, to hear and to obey. The time is near at hand. That time, 1074, is this generation. And in this generation, we will see the greatest resurrection, and like Pastor said, it means a restoring of life. We're the ones who are the last, but we'll be first to receive this power. And the next one, the time is at hand, the end, and these things will shortly come to pass, or come to pass in a shortened time. So stay encouraged, don't give up, and if you all please stand, I'm going to turn over to the next speaker.
Shabbat Shalom, great saints of Yahweh. Please take your seat in the great house of Yahweh. Today is Samuyl 26, and we know that 26 is the Yod-He Wah-He, the 10-5-6-5, so it's a special Yahweh day here with us. Always Yahweh is among us. So as I was thinking about the resurrection, I was thinking of different aspects of it, and I couldn't find anything that I really wanted to put my hand on until yesterday, when Yahweh woke me up at 3:11 with a gentle rain, and of course I'm thinking of Deuteronomy 32:2, where it says, let my teachings fall like rain, let my words descend like dew. And it was very comforting. And the next thought that was inspired in my mind was, Yeshua was raised on the Sabbath day, and I have a gematria to go with that. Yeshua was raised on the Sabbath day. Now you see those numbers, 2700, 1962, and 327. That 2700, both in the Hebrew and Greek, talk about Yeshua's death. And it says in Hebrews 2700, the village of death, the courts. And we know that in the courts, Yeshua had a mock trial where they sentenced him to death. He did it willingly because he knew what the prophecies spoke about him. He willingly laid down his life on our behalf. And also, it goes to 4194, which means death. And that it brought you to Deuteronomy 30, verse 19, where Yahweh says, I set heaven and earth before you this day to choose life or death. But he encourages us and implores us to choose life, just as Yeshua did. It said that death is an aspect of Yahweh's judgment of man, and that first warning was in Genesis 2:17. And let's turn there to Genesis 2:17, where it says, but of the tree of the knowledge of righteousness and evil you must not eat, for in the day you eat of it, dying you will die. Dying you will die. So Yahweh tells us we must choose life. And it also means to shoot down or to thrust through when you look at the Greek 2700. And that's what they did with Yeshua. Remember, they pierced his side so that the blood ran out. That Yeshua would no longer need that blood, because when he was risen on that third day, he was risen to a life, a body incorruptible that did not need blood, because that man stood for Yahweh, did not sin, believed in the scriptures, really truly knew his position and what he needed to do, because he understood prophecy, and that was taught to him all his life. So then I thought, okay, commissioned. Let's look at that next gematria. Commissioned. We know that the 828, Israel Hawkins, is commissioned in these last days to do a work. And we also know that in 1962, that other number that we had there for that Yeshua was raised on the Sabbath day, that salvation was offered once again on that day, on that year. That radio, they went on the radio, the two witnesses, and offered salvation. You see, that shows what Yeshua's work would be after his resurrection. His work was to behold this man, and if we can look at that next gematria, where it says, Yeshua commissioned by Yahweh to behold, 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 the 828. He was commissioned. He knew his job before he was even killed, because he believed the prophecies. Just like us, sisters, we know our job at that resurrection. We know what we're going to have to do, because we believe what the prophecies say, just like Yeshua knew that. And he knew he would be looking for this man. That 1962 means ruin, but then it went from there to 1943 to 1933, the date that Israel Hawkins came into existence within his mother's womb in 1933, which is amazing to me, because in 33 is when Yeshua was resurrected, and in 1933, 1900 years later, we have the one that he is to behold. And it went to 1961, meaning heya, to exist, to accomplish, commit, come to pass, and having control of all things. So when Yeshua was commissioned by Yahweh, that's in prophecy, and that's in Zechariah 6, verse 12 and 13, where it says, speak to him and say, this is what Yahweh of hosts says, behold the man whose name is the branch, for he will branch out from his place, and he will build the house of Yahweh. Yes, he will build the house of Yahweh. He will bear glory, and he will sit and rule on his throne. He will be a priest upon his throne, and the counsel of peace will be between them both, Yeshua and Yahweh, Israel. Yes, Yahweh will be between those two. In the Greek, 1962 means to nod at, or consent, or be in agreement. And that's what overseer is. He's always in agreement with the every word of Yahweh. No one else could, I don't know of anyone else that could have done Yeshua's job and did it so well, everything he did, and willing to give up his life to suffer the sacrifice that he did, the suffering, the harm. And no one on this earth besides Israel Hawkins, the prophesied one, the one sent in Isaiah 47, verse 7, to foretell and set it in order. That's what the overseer is doing, setting it in order. No one can do that like Israel Hawkins. Why? He is prophesied to do his job, and he's doing his job just like Yeshua. And that's what we do. We must believe into the one sent. That's our work. Yachanan 6:29, this is the work of Yahweh. Remember, the word work goes to Malach, the seventh Malach, the messenger, to believe into the one sent. And when we believe into him just like he believes into Yahweh and Yeshua, we will stand in our place and do our part at this resurrection. I have so much more to tell you on this. It's time for me to go, and I so long to be forever with Yahweh, with all my sisters in the great kingdom of Yahweh, as we say, blessed is he who comes in the name of Yahweh.
Shalom, please sit. The title of my speech this morning is It's Time to Get Ready. Yahweh is making us He's making us, in Genesis 1:26, it talks about him making us into a perfect family of priests. And it's time to get ready. Are you ready? Because it's time to get ready to assist in a job in the first resurrection. Like any other job, there's certain qualifications that have to be met. And we have to start studying the things that Pastor brings out. Pastor opens jars just a little bit, and then he expects that we're going to twist that jar off and just continue in the studies. All the things that he's brought out through these years. Remember the garden of greens and jeans? How many of you remember that? How many of you have diligently studied since Pastor started talking about that garden of greens and jeans? He gave us a little bit. We're going to get into it because he started way back in 2006, probably way before that. But it's crucial that we remember and start to understand this garden of greens and jeans, because it's crucial to being able to receive the power of resurrection. Remember, these things are granted to us in court. When we're in court, we're going to be granted these things. So we have to be able to legally obtain them. And we're qualifying for that with every decision that we make right now. Everything that we do, where we put our focus, okay? 6th book of Israel. Chapter 37, I'm going to be going over some excerpts between verses 20 and 29. And it says, you plant a seed. Now, he was giving a hint there, referring to the resurrection and the power we're going to have. Keep this in mind, Pastor says. When you plant a seed in the ground, the microorganisms immediately go to work on that seed. Why? Their job is to bring that seed forth into a plant and into food for mankind. Yahweh has assigned them to do this. So imagine now, if you will, a body being planted in the ground. And you put the microorganisms to work on that body. First, to take it down, to deplete it and turn it back to dust. Remember, from dust we are taken. From the chiefest of the dust we were taken. They, the microorganisms, are what Yahweh used to build our bodies. Well, that's the power you're going to have, Pastor says. When you get this power, imagine these microorganisms going to work in full force. We will have them prepared and ready, because this is something that has to be prepared. But we're made from this dust of the earth, and we're going to make the bodies again from the pattern, of course, that they were to begin with, but without the faults from sin that we've put into our bodies. We won't have the sickness and disease that we have now, and we'll rebuild what has died. Of course, just like a seed, it has to die, and then it's got to come back to life again. And that power is what Yahweh says that he is going to give us. That's big. And that's why we have to become so perfect that these microorganisms are going to be able to trust us. Do you see that? They were actually the ones that were used in all of the creation. Yahweh used them. He created them. And then he used them to put all these things together. Now, we're going to have authority over these microbes, and they're going to be subject to us. Remember, everything is made up of microbes. Everything. In the 4th book of Israel, the reverence of Yahweh, number 5, verse 47, it says, blessed and holy is he who has part or a job in the first resurrection. They will be priests of Yahweh and of the Messiah and will reign with him 1,000 years. You're going to be part of this great government of Yahweh, Pastor says, that Yahweh is preparing now. He's getting you ready to take these offices in this great kingdom of Yahweh. Pastor is training us and qualifying us We're actually being qualified by his teachings. And the choices that we make, we're either qualifying or disqualifying ourselves for particular jobs. Now, this is one of the jobs, and we don't have a long time now. Remember, we're in this last 3.5 years, and you've got to remember that it's cut short. So the resurrection now, we have to start learning how to do it. But before we start learning how to do it, we have to obtain the characteristics that will allow us to be trustworthy enough that those microbes will listen to and obey us. Everything that we say, everything that we command them, that they will do it, because it's crucial in order to complete the resurrection process. In the first book of Israel, chapter 25, verse 13, it says, Daniel 12:1, at that time. Now, what time is that? Verse 2. Remember, verse 2 says, many of those who sleep in the dust of the earth. Now, that's also the time of the resurrection. It shows it's the time of the resurrection. Daniel was told after he saw that there, that last time, the last part, he said, shut up the words and seal the prophecy until the time of the end. That's where we're at right now, right? Now for my gematria. Getting us ready to resurrect. 337, 1841, and 2022. Take a look at that there. Hebrew, 337, alas, woe, we are in the time of the woes. Hebrew 1841, the prophet Daniel. That's what that means? Really? Hebrew 2022, the mountains. You see there, in the time of the woes, as the prophet Daniel foretold, at the great mountain of Yahweh, we are getting ready to learn how to resurrect. You see it? And for my last gematria, authority to wake those asleep. 337, the Greek 2448, and the Hebrew 2022. It's alas, woe, at the time of the woes, those who worship Yahweh, Yada, at the great mountain of Yahweh, the house of Yahweh, that's where we're going to achieve this great authority to wake the dead. So let's strive to qualify. Let's put all our efforts into overcoming and learning what we need to do and how we need to behave in order to get this granted to us in the great courts. Praise Yahweh. And with this, please stand as I welcome the great priests in Yahweh's house. Praise Yahweh.
Praise Yahweh. Resurrection talks about raising up, right? Raising up our knowledge, wisdom, and understanding in all these things too. So to further our knowledge, at this time, we get to hear from great deacon Samuyl Hawkins.
Shalom. Please be seated. We recently had a prophecy come to pass on 12/2/2020. I had the nightly news on, and I was hardly paying attention to it. It wasn't even in the same room. But they was interviewing a woman, a nurse, and she was distraught about the suffering she was seeing and having to deal with. She had said something that caught my attention, and at the same time, my wife was in the kitchen. She had heard it, and she yells out the prophecy. Well, I got really excited because I've been looking forward to this prophecy and wondering why it hasn't come to pass yet. And so I called Israel real quick because I wanted to be the first one to tell him. And I called him, I told him, he was rejoicing. He was praising Yahweh, and then he said, I want you to bring it out next Sabbath. I had forgotten he does that. So here I am. I'm going to play the clip for you, or have our video technicians play the clip for you. I want to see if you can spot the prophecy in it. So please play the clip.
For 8 months, the COVID-19 unit has been Carly Thomas's second home. She was among the first group of nurses assigned to take on this unknown here at Excella Westmoreland Hospital. Now, we know more about the virus, but with hospital beds filling up, it's not getting any easier for those working on the front lines. The emotion in Carly Thomas's eyes is where her COVID-19 story starts.
I've held patients' hands while they die. And I've FaceTimed with families so they could say goodbye to their loved ones after we take them off a vent or a BiPAP. You know, it's terrible.
Thomas has worked here at Excel and Westmoreland Hospital for 9 years. In March, she was assigned to the COVID-19 unit.
That day, those nurses prayed, and they said, like, just instantly started to plan what we're going to do, how we're going to take care of these patients.
That care for patients has evolved, but Thomas says the pain and frustration hasn't changed, especially for those fighting for their lives without family by their side.
We can only FaceTime with families. We can, we become their family. We become their supporters.
The 15-bed unit Thomas works in is full, all COVID-19 patients. More than 100 people are currently hospitalized in Westmoreland County, a number that's steadily risen in the past month.
You may think wearing a mask is not going to prevent you from getting sick, but it may prevent a family member from getting sick. You know, a grandmother, an aunt, an uncle that are not their healthiest might not make it through this.
And while there are plenty of success stories and recoveries, Thomas says she's seen the worst of it as well. A critical part of her story that she knows isn't finished yet.
We just sit there and hold their hand. They want you to limit 15 minutes in the room, but how do you walk away from somebody that's saying, I just want to die?
Like so many healthcare professionals, Thomas told me she has relied on family and colleagues to help her through this, even if it's just a much-needed distraction. Still, she says, pandemic or no pandemic, she's signed up for this and will be here through it all. Reporting in Greensburg, Jim Medalinsky, Pittsburgh's Action News 4.
Jim.
Okay, thank you. How many have caught that prophecy? About all of you. Then you know where I'm going. Please turn to Revelations 9, verses 5 and 6. It says that it was granted to them that they should not kill them, but that they should be tormented 5 moons. That's been established. This is only 5 months. And there's torment was like the torment of a scorpion when it strikes a man. And in those days, men will seek death and will not find it, will long to die, but death will flee from them. Now, if our video technicians can play that last part of that clip again and loop it 2 or 3 times, please.
But how do you walk away from somebody that's saying, I just want to die? But how do you walk away from somebody that's saying, I just want to die? But how do you walk away from somebody that's saying, I just want to die?
That's real pain. That's real suffering. Is it a morbid thing that we rejoice when we see the suffering of the people that don't have the mark of Yahweh? I mean, after all, Isaiah 24, verse 5 tells us, don't do that. Oh, hang on. I give you the wrong one. Hold on. Do not rejoice when your enemy falls, and do not let your heart be glad when he stumbles. So why has this plague come upon them? Sorry, thank you. Why has this plague come upon them? Isaiah 24, verse 5 says, the earth also is defiled under the inhabitants of it, because they have transgressed the laws, changed the ordinance, and broken the everlasting covenant. That word because, that's a diagnostic term. Because they have transgressed the laws. That's why this has come upon them. So is it a morbid thing that we rejoice when we see this? Why did Israel rejoice when I told them about their sufferings. Because he can see an end to it. It's almost over. In Matthew 24, verses 33, in the same way, when you see all these things, know that his coming and the end of the age is near, at the very door. That's why he rejoices when he sees these things, when he sees their suffering. It's almost over. And as for us, this is why we rejoice. Revelations 9, hang on. I need 2 steps. So when we see these things begin to come to pass, then look up and lift up your heads because your redemption draws near. So you, in the same way, when you see these things come to pass, know that the kingdom of Yahweh is near at hand. And that's why we rejoice. So keep your eyes and ears open because prophecy is coming really fast now. It's like taking it in hand over fist. It's coming in so fast. Praise Yahweh. Thank you. Break it on, Michael.
Death, pain, and suffering, that's all the world has to offer, you know. But Yahweh gives us life, right? Yahweh gives us life, and the hope of life and the promise of life. That's what we've got to hang on to, you know. So to further our knowledge and understanding, at this time I turn it over to Great Deacon Michael Ossoff.
Shabbat Shalom, great saints of Yahweh. Please be seated. Yahweh's peace be with each and every one of you. We're going to move quickly. It's amazing. All the things in what I'm going to bring out have been spoken by the previous speakers. One thing I wanted to point out was Pastor had spoke, not the last time he spoke, but the time before that. He talked about the works of Satan, the works of Hillel, and her works go right alongside the works of Yahweh. And her works are all to try and stop Yahweh's work. And he says you see it in Revelation 9 and Revelation 16. You can see the works, the results of her works, which is the sicknesses, diseases, plagues, and soon nuclear war. Now, I'm going to try something different here. Hopefully it'll work out. So what I did is I went and did a search. I did a search on the works of Hillel. And I actually did a search. It was called The 7 Works of Hillel, that mirrored ours. It went right alongside ours. But it didn't come up that way. It didn't come up like different eras or things like that. But it showed all these different things that she's done throughout history to try and stop the work. So let's start with the scripture, Genesis 3. And it's found on page 2. And this sums up the work of the adversary, the work of Satan, the work of Hillel, in 1 through 5. And that is to stop Yahweh's work and destroy mankind. Okay, verse 1 in chapter 3. Now the serpent was more subtle and crafty than any beast of the field which Yahweh had made. And she said to the woman, has Yahweh indeed said, you shall not eat of every tree of the garden? And the woman said to the serpent, we might eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden, but the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, Yahweh has said, you shall not eat nor eat it, nor shall you touch it, or you will die. Dying, you will die. And the serpent said to the woman, you will not surely die, for he knows that in the day you eat of it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be as gods, knowing righteousness and evil. You will become evil like the gods. Okay? And all that sums up her work, her job, what she wants to do, and that's to destroy Yahweh's work. So I did this search, and it was an amazing search. It came up with lots of great stuff. So let's dig right in and see some of the things that came up. Okay, we'll get on there. Okay, I'm going to try something different here. I'm going to make it a little bigger, and I'll move it around so you can see it a little better. Bear with me, this is the first effort here. Okay, so right here, we had 7 works of Hillel. Okay, now 7 works of Satan was not there because that's not her name. You have the 7 works of Yahweh, and you have the 7 works of Hillel. That came up with a skip of 40,520 characters between each letter, each character. Okay, so let's start. Right here, we have Babylonians. Babylonians, which is confusion. Babylon is confusion. Okay, then down here, let me move that over. Babylonians. Then right here, we have Christianity. Christianity. Then we jump over to right here, Darwin. Another work that she brought forth. Darwin. Then over here, we have deception. Deception. Now this next group came up together, and it was kind of amazing. We have 6, 7, and 8. What we have is Cain, arrow 1, worldly. Cain, arrow 1, worldly. Now that was the only thing that came up that showed a specific era of the work she was doing. Okay? Okay, then we have, right here, connected to the works of Hillel, we have gods. Gods. We have Yada, right there. And over here, frightening. Frightening. Now this connects to Cain, arrow 1, worldly. Now you got to remember, at the time of Cain's Catholic Church, and it was the universal, worldwide Catholic Church, Yahweh's work was a small little group. Remember, Yisrael Hawkins, our great teacher, has said repeatedly, this group mirrors the work of Abel. It was not a worldwide organization. The house of Yahweh was a small flock. Cain's group, the Universal Catholic Church, was worldwide, and they were frightening. And it's the same pattern today that we see as Cain's, murdering and frightening the people and the work of Yahweh, like today, and it was the house of Yahweh being a small little group led by one sent. And this period, it's Yisrael Hawkins. In that period, it was Abel. Okay, I just wanted to make sure that was clear. Right here we have, okay, let me slide it over a little bit. Right here we have injustice. Okay, and over here we have Nazis. The Nazis, and we know that that particular time period, in the time of Germany and Hitler and the rise of the Nazi group that was ran under the authority of Hitler, was to stop the last day's witness, to find the last day's witness and destroy him. Okay? Now there's something else connected to that which we'll come back to. Right here we have manipulation. Manipulation. Okay? Right here we have laws or plan of God. Not the laws or plan of Yahweh. Laws or plan of God. Right here we have universal. Universal. Over here, right up here, we have war. This next one was really interesting. Right here. Nicaea. Nicaea. Okay. These weren't together, but they go together. And right here we have 325, the year 325. And of course it crosses Babylonians and connects to Christianity. Okay? Then, that was 19. 20, sorry, down here. Make sure I get these in. 20 is abortion. Abortion. Okay. 21, which is right up here, goes all the way across up here at the top. Okay? 21 is Holocaust, and it crosses Nazis. Okay? Crosses worldly and Nazis. Then we have, right here, we have Rome. Rome, Korah. Korah, and to finish it out, crossing Babylonians and crossing 7 works of Hillel, we have sons of God, and it has L there, sons of God. The works of Hillel. Now, some other words that came up were Egypt, Bacchanal, which is followers of Bacchus, and they had their secret rituals in the 3rd Roman month every year held on Aventine Hill on the 7 hills in the 7 hills of Rome area in Rome. Okay? We also have crossbreeding, deify, denial. Remember, you will not surely die. Dispute, divide, drunkenness, godlike, grievous, gross, hypocrite, libertarian, misconduct, pagan, self-praise, and holidays. Holidays. And I would highly encourage everybody to go online if you don't have the booklet and go to Yahweh.com and pull up the Christmas booklet and refresh your memory and your understanding of this time we're going through at this the month of the gods descending. And remember that it's a very big month for the Christian and for the Christian religion and for the world, and everything that they're doing and bringing forth and wanting to turn everybody away from the way of Yahweh in the entire world. But we know that we're not ignorant of her devices, we're not ignorant of her tricks, because we follow, believe in, and stand behind the one sent Yisrael Hawkins. And we cannot go wrong. Stay close to the house of Yahweh, stay close to the teachings of Yahweh, always stay in communication and contact with your counselors, and you cannot go wrong when you follow what the priests and priestesses say. So if you all please stand. Have a great Sabbath. Yahweh bless all of you. I have the privilege to turn it over to a great priest again in Yahweh's house, the great Kohan Michael Hawkins.
Satan's working. She's working hard too, isn't she? But you know what? What are we doing? We're making her job harder, right? We're making her work very hard, and even to the point to where she's going to try and destroy the whole earth because of us. So keep those things in mind as we strive every day to keep going and going and going, for Yahweh's word. This time we get to hear from great Kohan Benjamin Krause Hawkins.
Shabbat Shalom. Yahweh's peace be with everyone. Please be seated. All right, let's go ahead and put up the title slide. Got a lot to cover today, as usual. This is part 5 of the series on the original sons of Yahweh. We're calling it the 9/11 prognosticators. Don't worry if you don't know what that word means. You will by the time this is over. Let's go ahead and go to the first slide. Remember, do a quick review of what we went over last week about Ground Zero and the World Trade Center, this planned event. Remember, we saw these in Ground Zero World Trade Center. We saw the word arches or arch, Euphrates, and the word time, season and time, because it's the time for these events to take place. We saw 2606, which was the number of victims at Ground Zero, not the total number of victims on 9/11, but at Ground Zero in the 2 buildings. And 2606 meant Hananiel, the Tower of Hananiel, which was one of the towers of the temple in Jerusalem that was destroyed on 9/11, Tish B'Av, twice in history. And then we saw Tower of Hanil, the Twin Towers, the same exact numbers, 361 Arch, 2166 Euphrates in time or season, and 3698, which meant to lay waste, to waste and lay waste. And World Trade Center, terrorism, we saw 2001. Let's go to the next slide. Now, World Trade Center is called the World Financial Center on the map there. World Financial Center, World Trade Center, 3006, the tag number of the original sons that I was telling you had this all planned from the beginning. The other number is 2544, and it means bitumen.
asphalt used for cement and building Babel. And remember, is not New York City, according to the Mark of the Beast, page 135, called the modern day Babel? Okay? So when you put in New York City, modern Tower of Babel, you get 361 Arch, 2166 Euphrates, where they launched the war after this planned event, and 2166 time. And the third number, 3427, means settled, dwelt, established, habitation, seat. It's the same word used in Genesis 10 where it shows that they settled in the plain of Shinar to build Babylon, okay? And George Washington, the reason the Washington Arch is so important is George Washington was inaugurated in New York City. New York was the original capital of the United States, and he's the one that told the governor, McClinton, that New York is going to become the seat of empire. That's in the Mark of the Beast, page 151. New York City in the Empire State, 2482, Italy. Wow, there's a connection here. Now, I want you to look at World Financial Center, the World Trade Center. When you add up the numbers, you get 5550, and it means time. From 2540, a short time, appointed time. Remember Revelation 1:1 about these things that are going to take place in this shortened time, this period. Let's go to the next slide. Just reminding you about the Titus and Washington Square arches. You put that in, you get 2535 Cain. Okay, because it's about war and conquering. And if you remember, I showed on the Washington Square Arch, which looks directly at the World Trade Center there, is written exitus acta probat, which means in Latin, the outcome justifies the deed. In other words, what we're going to do justifies, what the things that we do to do this justifies the outcome of what we're trying to do, this new world order. And remember, when you put in arch, the end justifies the means, the outcome justifies the deed, the outcome is the test of the act, you get 9/11. Let's go to the next slide. Pastor, in the 11th book of Israel, part 1, chapter 11:39, he says, but you're going to see next, notice, to take peace from the earth, and that they should kill one another. That's what's taking place, but this will get worse also in that fourth part of the earth, and then it will move here to your land here in America. Whew, that's what Scripture shows. Take peace from the earth, and that they should kill one another, and there was given to him a great sword. Yes, bombs. We're going to learn about those too, that were given in the Manhattan Project. Remember? Named after this city here. Tactical, technical nuclear bombs. We saw one hit a building that belonged to Gaddafi. Another one goes straight in the same hole, goes down deeper, This is how technical these bombs are right now. They have a great sword here to fight with, not like the one that I can think of the name now. I'm glad I can't even think of his name, laughing. Titus, that destroyed Jerusalem and took the artifacts to Rome. Yes, he did have a sword. Well, this one is a great sword, great like the word great, earthquake. It's a great sword that can really do some damage. So much that it can darken the sun. And then he says, let's see. That verse, put it in, you get 9/11. From the 15th book of Israel, chapter 40, verse 8, Pastor says, Yahweh showed that the Vatican gave the orders. She gave the authority to the one of the quartet to take peace from the earth. Let's go ahead and flip that number there. And you'll see, you'll see 9s and 11s, right? Like 9/11? Okay, look below that and you'll see a 16th century Jesuit ring with the numbers, the Roman numerals 9/11 on it. 16th century? Huh. What's so special about that number to the Jesuits? Let's go to the next slide. Before we get into that, Pastor called me the other night and he says, hey, have you ever looked up what a third part of 8 billion people is? He said, go put it in your calculator. He says, so I did, and lo and behold, it's 2,666,666,666.666. And notice 266 that it begins with, that points to Francis. Pope Francis is number 266, which means sin. He's the 266th Pope. So the first, I put in 2,666,666,666,666.6666 is 1/3 of man. And notice what comes out. 1520 means to burst forth. 912 means servant of Yahweh, because 912 is the nuclear baby prophecy that the servant of Yahweh gave us, right? 91206. And then the third number, 1010, means the house of Baal. Yes, this is the people of Baal that this is going to come upon. And notice that number 10103 is the area code in New York City, the New Babylon. If you'll notice the map there, it's an area code right there in New York City, 10103. Let's go to the next slide. Now, they launched this war in the current mark of the beast with the 666 coronavirus on it. Pastor shows us the names of each operation they launched after this 9/11 attack. Operation Iraqi Freedom, Operation New Dawn, Operation Enduring Freedom, Operation Inherent Resolve, and Operation Freedom Sentinel. You get 1318, which is Revelation 1318, which is 666. 7908 from 7921 means to destroy, abort, make childless, rob of children, depopulated. Remember what their agenda is. And then the third number, 6640, is from 6622, and it's Patar, Peter. Remember the the opener that interprets the scriptures. Peter. And then you look to the other part here, the fourth part of the earth in and around the great river Euphrates, 666 again. The mark of the beast, 3996, which means to mourn, lament, wail, severe grief. And then 3359 means the forehead. Remember the mark in the forehead, 666? Let's go to the next slide. Speaking of nuclear babies, maybe you've read in the news this week, there's going to be a great conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn that's going to form a Christmas star on winter solstice, 12/21. It's called the Great Conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn. You get 2484, which means an ornament. You know, like the little star on top of the tree? From 2470, but there's some bad news. Sick, be wounded, put to pain, grievous, sore. Add up those numbers, and you get 5490. It means come to an end, completion, remove, terminate, consume, perish. It's going to be on December 1st, 2020. The gematria for that is 3006. Again, the tag number of the original suns, which is also the tag number found in the Great Conjunction Jupiter and Saturn, 3006. And it 5052 means illuminate, to enlighten, to shine. And 5052 in the Greek means to bring to maturity, used of pregnant women bringing their young to maturity, like a baby in the belly. Now notice this story came out last night on newswars.com. Ancient astronauts and Egyptian symbols on display in this year's nativity scene in St. Peter's Square. You see that? You see the Vatican behind it, right? And you see that ancient astronaut there with the helmet on? And look at the baby protruding from the belly. What kind of baby is that? It looks like a nuclear baby. It looks like a tyrant. Ancient astronauts, aliens, St. Peter's Square, 3006. What are they getting ready for? Let's go to the next slide, because I talked about procrastinating. Oh, not procrastinating, prognosticating. Some of us are bad at that too, you know. Okay. So the Twin Towers, when you look through the arch, right? We put that, the Twin Towers through the arch, you get 359, and it means a grove of lofty trees. We'll look to the left. You see the arch there in Washington Square Park, and right ahead of it, you see a circle, the sun circle, okay, just like in the Vatican, and a grove of lofty trees surrounding it. That's called a grove, okay, in Scripture, actually. Then you get 2154, which means a plan, immorality, wicked scheme, evil intent, lustful crime, heinous crime, to plan, plotted, schemed. The 2154 in Greek means a sign, clear, easy to understand, clear to the understanding. Now, Today's 12:12, which means to make clear and manifest. So we're going to make it really clear to you who was behind this scheme, if you still have any doubt in your mind. The third number, 3045, means have knowledge. It's the word yada, and it means have knowledge, predict, like predictive programming, make it known, cunning, prognosticator. And notice a divining arch, 119 and 911. 119 is 911 backwards, and 911, right? Let's go to the next slide, and let's look at this word prognosticator. It's someone who makes predictions of the future, usually on the basis of special knowledge, a person with unusual powers of foresight. Well, yeah, because they know what they're getting ready to do. So, put in someone who makes predictions of the future, especially on the basis of special knowledge. You get 5178, which is serpent. From 5172 to practice divination, to prognosticate. And then 5185 is from 5181, means to bring down. As in bringing down some buildings. So, and then you see 1054, a prognosticator, someone who makes predictions of the future, usually on the basis of special knowledge, is 1054, the number of Jupiter, tying it in with the Vatican. Now let's watch this. Go to the next slide. The Simpsons' 9th season originally aired on the Fox network. Well, that should tell you something. Yahshua called Herod a fox. Between September 97 and May 98, beginning on Sunday, September 21st, 97, with the city of New York versus Homer Simpson. That was the name of the episode. And you see here, Lisa's putting up a magazine in front of Bart, showing him a picture of this is before 9/11 took place. And you see the number 9 with the Twin Towers next to it, which looks like a 9/11, right? And then Bart, in the same scene, he takes a wad of money and he sticks it out there and looks at the camera for everyone to see. Why was he showing the money? We'll see here in a minute. So from the time this aired that night to September 11, 2001 was 1452 from 1443, which means Masons. Okay, and remember, when you put 1443 Masons and 3441 and mirror them, 3441 is Jesuits, and when you put in mirror 3441, 1441, you get 9/11. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. So what were they trying to show about the money? Next slide. Now, this money was not made until 1998. Okay, a year later. When you fold up that $20 bill like an airplane, notice what you see through the arch on the bill. Notice it makes an arch and you see 2 burning towers. And when you fold the money a certain way, you'll also see the word Osama down there on the bottom left. And if you notice 2020 on the wings, isn't it 2020 now to make this crystal clear to you? And 2020? You see America on one wing and United on the other. One was an American Airlines plane. The other was a United plane that hit the towers. When you flip it over, you get the Pentagon, which was, believe it or not, the building construction started on the Pentagon, September 11th, 1941, 60 years to today. Put in United, American, Osama. Go ahead and flip the number. Go ahead and flip that number for everybody. Okay. Yeah, you see 9/11? Let's go to the next slide. Now, this is shown on a folded $20 bill. 2154, a plan, wicked scheme, evil intent, lustful crime, to plan, plot, and scheme. 2154 means a sign, clear to the understanding. And the second number, 3039, means to pulverize, ground to powder. Look at that building. Is that a collapse? Or is that a grinding to powder? Let's go to the next slide. Okay, so you're still a little bit not sure about this, right? Don't flip that yet. Don't make me flip. Okay, so look here. Go to this website right here. This is uscurrency.gov. And this shows you the $20 note that was launched on September 24th, 1998. What I did is all I took was what's written there and all the security things they show you about the new $20 bill. And I put them in Gematria. And notice, flip the number, please. Couldn't flip it now. You can flip it now. What? 9/11/01? 2001? Really? That's in the security details on their website. Okay, but maybe that's not enough. Remember a prognosticator meant unusual powers of foresight, 1998? Let's go to the next slide. Now, this is a picture. It says the triumph of Titus, AD 71, the Flavians. It's an oil painting. I put in what they put about the oil painting, and it came out 1776, which is the number on that pyramid, and 1110, which is also the gematria for In Hoc Signo Vinces, 1110, Divining Serpent 1110, World Trade Center 1110, all which means to annihilate, lay waste, and destroy. Remember? Now look on page 911 of your book of Yahweh, and the very first name you see is Titus. But it's not this Titus. It's a righteous Titus, okay? But he'll probably change his name someday. But notice the first name on 911 is Titus. Huh. And remember, it was Titus who destroyed the temple on Tish B'Av, 70 AY, which was 9/11, which also the first destruction of the temple was on Tisha B'Av, which is 9/11, right? Are you seeing a pattern here? Let's go to the next slide. I'm almost done. Remember, In Hoc Signo, in this sign, is what that means on the Jesuit logo. Doesn't that sword kind of look like a plane crashing between two towers? 241 means aliens, strangers. The second number, 1446, is Masons, which when you mirror it means Jesuits. And then the third number is 708, which means to weave a spider's web of intrigue. Remember that word intrigue came up last sermon about the Jesuits? When you add up the number, you get 2395, and it means severe, fierce forces joining, became powerful, prevailed, conquer. All right, listen to me. Yahweh is so incredible. What I'm about to show you is the nail in the coffin of the Jesuits, okay, who pulled this off. And I'm hoping some people are listening again so they can go question the Pope. We want to get to the bottom of this 9/11 event, right? Let's go ahead and flip the next slide and show you the last slide here. Okay, so this is from that same currency website about the 1996 currency redesign. They redesigned it in 96. They released it in 98. When you put in what they put on their website, exactly what they put, you get 2482, which means Italy. The second number, 1489, means treasurer, like the Treasury Secretary of the money. Italy must be in control of our bank, right? I showed you that before too, the Rothschilds. Hebrew 1297, the third number, means to rise boldly, defiantly, promote, display, triumphant. Like, remember the Ark of Triumph? That's what those arcs are called. They're called arcs of triumph, triumphal arcs. Like we've conquered. Now, when you add up those numbers that I just gave you, 2482, 1489, 1297, you get 5250. And I cut it out of Strong so you'd believe me, so you know I'm not making this up. Now, can you please flip that word? Look at the logo. Look at the logo. Look at the logo. IHS. That means in this sign. But look here. The word win. Win means conquer. In this sign, conquer. Triumph. These are the synonyms of the word triumph. Conquer, triumph, win. So in this sign, win, conquer. Is there any doubt in your mind? Oh, don't worry. We got a whole lot more, okay? We got a whole lot more, and it's not going to stop coming, okay? because this evil, wicked, beastly system is going to be brought down by the house of Yahweh, not by force, but by teaching. So if you'd please stand at this time, it's my great honor and privilege to turn it over to the great Kohan, Michael Hawkins.
Conqueror. You know, everything has to be done by force. That's the way Satan's way is, right? Everything is by force. It's never through anything that is beneficial for mankind. But to further our learning at this time, we get to turn it over to great Kohan Yehuda Hawkins.
Shalom. Please sit. Please be seated. I almost said sit down. I meant be seated. I got a little bit to talk about today, so please, please take your books of Yahweh and turn to page 982. We're going to look at Revelation 18 verses 8 through 10, and then we'll look at another scripture after that. Page 982 in your book of Yahweh, please. 982. This is Revelation 8, verses 8 through 10. Therefore, her plagues will come in one day, death and mourning and famine, and she will be utterly burned with fire, for strong is Father Yahweh who judges her. And the kings of the earth who have committed fornication and live luxuriously with her will wail over her and lament for her when they will see the smoke of her burning, standing afar off for the fear of her torment, saying, Alas, alas, that great city Babylon, you just heard about it, that mighty city, for in 1 hour your judgment has come. The word one that is written in Revelation 18, verse 8 is translated from the Hebrew word achad. This word is listed on page 56 of a Hebrew and Chaldee lexicon to the Old Testament by Julius I, which shows this word means soul, only one and the same. The word day that is written in Revelation 18, verse 8 is translated from the Hebrew word yom. This word is listed on page 556 of a Hebrew and Chaldee lexicon to the Old Testament by Julius I, which shows this word means at that time. The word torment that is written in Revelation 18, verse 8 is translated from the Hebrew word asham. This word is listed on page 160 and 161 of a Hebrew and Chaldee lexicon to the Old Testament by Julius I, which shows this word means transgression, guilt, to be devastated. The word city that is written in Revelation 18, verse 10 is translated from the Hebrew word oyir. This word is listed on pages 368 through 381 of volume 6 of the Dictionary of Classical Hebrew by David Kleins, and page 1075 of volume 2 of the Hebrew Aramaic English Dictionary by Marcus Castro, which shows this word means to be born a human, inhabitants, people, the city that was full of people, adversary, the word of evil men, man, woman, child, reviling curse, the city Rome. So this is what Revelation 18, verse 8 through 10 is telling you. Therefore her plagues will come at that very time, death and mourning and famine, and she will be utterly burned with fire, for Father Yahweh, who is our strength, will judge her. And the kings of the earth who have committed fornication and live luxuriously with her will wail over her and lament for her when they will see the smoke of her burning, standing afar off for the fear of her devastation because of her guilt of her transgressing Yahweh's laws. It will be said, Alas, alas, that great people of evil men of the house of Baal, the Lord, Babylon, Cush, Nimrod, Rome, that mighty people of evil men of the house of Baal, Babylon, Cush, Nimrod, Rome, for in 1 hour your judgment has come. Now this is based upon Genesis 6, verse 17. Turn to page 5 in your book of Yahweh. Turn to page 5. Now, as we have seen in the Bibles, it says, Yahweh says, I will do these terrible things to you. Now, to make them think it, Yahweh hired some guy up in Afghanistan somewhere to hire a bunch of crazy people to hijack jets and blow down the 2 World Trade Center towers. But when you get to the Hebrew and look at it, like we did in Revelation, we'll see what it really says. And behold, I myself am bringing the flood of waters on the earth to destroy from under heaven all flesh, which the breath of life is. Everything on the earth shall die. The words I and myself that are written in Genesis 6:17 are translated from the Hebrew word ani. This word is listed on page 35 of the analytical Hebrew and Chaldee lexicon by Benjamin Davison, which shows this word means to cause to come to pass, to befall anyone. So this is what Genesis 6:17 is saying, and Revelation 18 verse 8-10 is called embellishes. In other words, further it explains it as to what's going to occur to Babylon and all these false religions, world powers, lines of thought, mindsets, whatever you want to call it. For behold, a flood of waters will come upon the earth to destroy from under heaven all flesh in which the breath of life is. Everything on the earth shall die. They, mankind, have caused this to come to pass. And that's what it's all about. If you would like an excellent explanation of all of this, how that it's not Yahweh that destroyed them, but they that destroyed themselves, you can get a great lesson by reading the 2 books in the Holy Scriptures called Ezra and Nehemiah. Because both Ezra and Nehemiah said over and over, Father Yahweh, we know we caused this and brought it upon ourselves. If you will read those books, it will really tell you exactly what Yahweh allowed to occur when people fell away in those days, and how the nations of Israel and the other one fell and were helpless because they turned from Yahweh. Read those, because that gives you a picture written by Yahweh himself as to how mankind brings everything upon themselves. 1 hour nuclear burning, all these things you hear, the time, everything. As Ezra Nehemiah said, we brought these things upon ourselves. Oh, Yahweh, help us and be with us when we try to put things back the way they should be. The house of Yahweh is not only going to cry, it is going to succeed. Success is waiting for the house of Yahweh. It is up to the house of Yahweh to get the job done that it was called to do, and that is every one of us. May Yahweh bless your understanding, and I turn these services back to the great Kohan Michael Hawkins.
Mankind has brought himself down so low in these last days, as it was earlier in man's time when there was a flood. The earth just couldn't handle it, and it's getting the same way in these last days. But we got a flood of information as well to bring forth. So at this time, to hear about the news, great Kohan Ilya Hawkins.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Please be seated. The peace of Yahweh be with each and every one of you. I want to show this to you to get it into your mind, just so you're familiar with it here. And this is the Washington Post, and they reported 1 month ago today that new daily coronavirus cases in the United States rise to 145,000, of course, saying that they were setting records. And keep that number in your mind as we watch this progressively increase. If you remember the last time that we spoke, the cases were at 13 million, and that was just 2 weeks ago. Well, of course, this morning, and this is the latest report, you see they're now at 16,297,000. So progressively getting worse, picking up. You'll see in the news to where they've had 1.4 million in the last 7 days. The first 5 days of the 12th Roman month, they had already hit 1 million cases, 1 million new cases. These are reported cases now. These aren't people that's asymptomatic or people that aren't going. These are reported cases. people that are testing positive for this COVID virus. But you'll see this, they're showing pandemic fatigue, and it starts off in the UK with this pandemic fatigue. And what it is, people don't want to have compliance to rules. And if you watch through this, you literally are seeing that there's rules that are being told to people that if you do this, it will keep you safe. And of course, it's a lie. The rules are giving them. You can stay at home. That's not going to keep you safe. If you practice sin, dying, you will die. Now, the COVID doesn't kill you, but that's part of the beast. That's part of receiving the beast. It comes from sin. It attaches to sin within the person. If a person practices sin, you can't run, you can't hide from it. It's going to find you, no matter where. You can put on all the mask you want, all the hand sanitizer you want, lock yourself in a room, it's still going to find you. And notice as they're going through this, they're kind of getting away from telling people to adhere to rules to the vaccine is almost here. The Savior is coming. You know, it's like the second coming, so to speak, where they talk about this vaccine. And watch how people are fighting just against something as simple as where they're being told to wear a mask. Watch how they fight against it and how the hatred of one man where he says, when did government get to dictate what we wear? Well, the government of Yahweh does dictate modesty and how to present yourself and things we should do. There's a hatred that's been taught for rules in society, and that started from the beginning. But remember what the peaceful solution teaches, that rules keep you safe. Compliance with rules that actually adhere to truly caring about someone. But also their fears. People are fearing that people aren't following these rules, and of course these rules are making up, aren't going to keep them safe. And you'll hear one news reporter that when they come on the air, they say, breaking news, we are in COVID hell. Showing how no matter what's being done, you can quarantine these people, you can shut down cities, it's not slowing it down. And that's what Pastor told them. You can do whatever you want to do. You're not going to stop this COVID virus. It's going to spread to everyone who has the mark of the beast. And it also shows that notary publics are staying very busy doing last will and testimony as people are on their deathbed. They're summoning for people so they can get their wills fulfilled, and big business coming in this. And then it says desperate new measures being taken, but everyone is seeing that it's not helping. And 2020 has been voted the worst year ever. And that's only because 2021 hasn't got here yet. It's going to get worse. It might be the winter for now, but it won't be for long. We still have quite a few more things to be poured out. Nurse is saying that things have gotten worse and it's completely out of control. You're going to see where hospitals are turning their parking garages into ICU beds for people who have this COVID. But notice through all this, everything you see, notice there's no one but the house of Yahweh saying it's a lifestyle that needs to be changed. This is coming. It is a result of something. It's a result of sin, and unless we change, it will not change in the lives of people. But notice what their answer is. It's this vaccine. 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 It's almost here. Hang on a little bit longer. It's almost here. And then you see where the news, it was released this last week, where the vaccine companies openly admit that taking the vaccine will not stop the spread of the virus. So that's got to be a guarantee for you. You can take it, you can accept it into your body, this virus, but it won't stop it. And even they say behavioral changes are needed. Behavioral changes must take place. Now, I want you to think about this. These are the vaccine side effects. Now, if you fall in this category, I do, it says that if you're allergic to foods, there's a lot of food I'm allergic to that's on the market. Medication, I could think of a lot of medication I'm allergic to that's on the market. Or vaccines, I'm allergic to poison. If you're allergic to any of these things, they tell you don't take it. But if you do take it, here are some of the side effects. Pain, headache, fatigue, fever, swelling, and Bell palsy, permanent facial paralysis. Not to mention that Pfizer left this detail out. 6 people who took the test vaccine died. They didn't tell anybody about that. That recently just come out through the FDA. But this Savior that they're looking for sounds worse than the disease they're trying to cure. So watch how they're looking for this, but slowly but surely, listen to, you're going to hear behavioral changes, behavioral changes, behavioral changes. That's what is needed to change this world, and that's the only way, but they're going to have to see it first. At this time, if we could please go ahead and play the news.
We want to go now to CBS News senior foreign correspondent Elizabeth Palmer in London, where lockdown rules are being met with some resistance.
A crowd of mostly young protesters marched through the center of London. They're fed up with the restrictions that have shut down businesses and social gatherings in the UK for a month. Prime Minister Boris Johnson.
What we want to avoid is relaxing now too much, taking our foot off the throat of the beast, taking our foot off the throat of the beast.
We are going to begin with breaking news on just how soon Americans may be able to get a vaccine for the deadly coronavirus. Tonight, the drug maker Moderna says it has applied for emergency approval from the FDA for its vaccine, making it just the second company after Pfizer to ask for emergency authorization. The company says it's on track to have 20 million doses ready by the end of December. The Army general in charge of distributing the shots in the U.S. says that by June, 100% of Americans who want to be vaccinated will be. And the HHS Secretary, Alex Azar, tells CBS News that many seniors in nursing homes, along with frontline workers, will have already gotten their shots before the end of this year. But it's what happens before then that has public health officials sounding alarms tonight. Dr. Anthony Fauci, the nation's top infectious disease expert, says the country is now facing a surge on top of a surge. The virus is now spreading so fast, 4 million Americans were infected this month alone. Now, that's 1/3 of the 13.5 million cases here in the U.S. since the pandemic began. In fact, things are so dire that right now hospitals nationwide are treating nearly 100,000 COVID patients. That is another new record.
Good evening, Nora. And take a look at this line behind me here at Dodger Stadium. It snakes around for miles. We're told 13,000 people have signed up for testing here today alone. America's top health officials say if you travel for the holiday, you should assume you have COVID and act accordingly. Meanwhile, a breakthrough in the race for a vaccine.
The race for a vaccine nearing the finish line with two companies neck and neck. Tonight, Moderna reporting their vaccine is more than 94% effective. If approved, Moderna's vaccine, along with Pfizer's, could be given to as many as 20 million people within weeks.
We could be seeing both of these vaccines out and getting into people's arms before Christmas.
Still, not soon enough as the nation faces a surge in COVID hospitalizations, now more than 93,000 nationwide.
In the new battlefield, hospital capacity is the top concern, period.
New York's governor with a dire warning, pleading for doctors and nurses to come out of retirement, saying New York needs to increase bed capacity by 50%. Rhode Island's hospitals now completely full. Out west, Los Angeles County closing playgrounds, limiting how many can shop at one time, and telling residents they can't meet up with anyone who doesn't live with them, even outdoors. There are also new warnings after millions ignored pleas to stay home and avoid gatherings, like this Houston party drawing hundreds. As bad as this looks, the crowd did not violate the city's COVID guidelines. Another Houston image, this doctor, who has worked over 250 straight days, comforting a patient in tears.
We have a report tonight from two COVID hotspots in America's heartland. South Dakota and Indiana have the highest rates of COVID hospitalizations per capita in the entire country. CBS's David Begnaud spoke with battle-weary healthcare workers on the front lines of the crisis.
If I don't have COVID, I cannot spread COVID.
We start in South Dakota. As the virus rages, so does the debate.
It's just a mask, wear it. This is a public health crisis. I don't know what else to say.
When did government get to dictate what we wear?
That was in Rapid City last night, in a state that leads the nation in per capita hospitalizations. For COVID, Indiana ranks second. Scott Samuyl is an emergency room doctor in Hammond, Indiana, near Chicago. We first talked to him back in March.
This is the most scared I've ever been being an ER doctor.
That was at the start of the pandemic. Now?
It's been 9 months, and we're still at it. I'm emotionally and mentally fatigued, and physically. I think everybody is.
Tonight, Indiana set another record for hospitalizations, nearly quadrupling in just 2 months. This 25-bed hospital in rural Missouri cannot keep up. It is overwhelmed. Take Florida today. They hit 1 million total coronavirus cases.
What's it about? Patient care.
In New York, there was a walkout.
We don't have enough staffing, so we can't take adequate care of the patients.
And listen to this nurse in North Dakota.
One day your patient will be doing okay on a couple liters of oxygen, and the next day they're needing to be vented.
1 in 4 North Dakotans know someone who died from the virus. Meanwhile, this from Dr. Anthony Fauci.
I think if you start to see overrunning of your hospitals and your healthcare systems, I can assure you that there will be serious consideration for lockdown.
Begin with that breaking news, that frightening new warning from the head of the CDC. As many as 450,000 Americans could die from the coronavirus by February in what he calls the most difficult 3 months in the history of public health. Now, that prediction comes from Dr. Robert Redfield, and it comes less than 2 weeks before Operation Warp Speed says the U.S. should start distributing its first vaccines. Great Britain is moving even faster than that after the government there approved Pfizer's vaccine today, launching a plan to start giving shots within days. Well, tonight, the commissioner of the FDA tells CBS News it will take longer for the U.S. to approve the vaccine to assure Americans that it is safe. Still, experts say even when vaccinations begin, the damage from all that Thanksgiving travel may already be done. And as we come on the air, the rate of new infections nationwide continues to grow. Hospitalizations from the virus have hit an all-time high, too. So in an effort to stop further spread tonight, the CDC is once again asking Americans not to travel to celebrate the upcoming holidays. And it's lowering its recommendation for how long Americans should quarantine if exposed to someone with the virus. So listen up. It's lowering the length of isolation from 14 days now down to as few as 7.
Good evening, Nora. We are at the precipice of 100,000 hospitalizations. That's nearly double what we saw in the first peak of the pandemic in the spring. And this is one of the reasons why the White House Coronavirus Task Force says the country is in a dangerous place. Hospitals are being hit by a tidal wave of new coronavirus cases, with predictions of it getting worse.
December and January and February are going to be rough times.
Daily coronavirus cases have continued to spike, with more than 180,000 a day. That's doubled in the last month, and the numbers are expected to rise now that it's been a week since Thanksgiving.
And I think everyone's overwhelmed at this point.
So this sudden rise that you're seeing is very concerning.
No, we're not flattening the curve at this point.
In hard-hit Tennessee, Notary Public Adrian Bowling has seen a surge in people desperate to get their affairs in order, people in ICUs.
What is it like in the room when you're asking people in their hospital beds what their wishes are, what they want for their will?
It is a very sobering time. You can tell from the look in their eyes. It's almost as if it's becoming real that, am I not going home? Is this going to be my final resting place?
In California, average new cases and deaths have jumped more than 50% in just 2 weeks. In North Dakota and Rhode Island, 90% of ICUs are filled.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us. We are going to begin with breaking news tonight. America is now in COVID hell. America is now in COVID hell. In just 24 hours, the U.S. has broken every record set since the pandemic began 10 months ago. In just 24 hours, the U.S. has broken every record set since the pandemic began 10 months ago, with more new infections, hospitalizations, and deaths in a single day than ever. So many Americans are now being killed by the virus. 4 people have died just since this broadcast began. That's a rate of 1 life lost every 30 seconds. As we come on the air tonight, more than 100,000 people are now in the hospital with coronavirus, pushing the country's healthcare system to the brink. California's governor says ICU beds are filling up so fast there, he may soon have to shut down much of his state, ordering people to stay at home to try to stop the virus from spreading any faster.
Desperate new measures in some states to slow the spread of the coronavirus. As you can see, we are heading in the wrong direction, and we are heading there very fast. We had more cases than ever yesterday, with more than 217,000 new infections.
The daily death toll is also headed in the wrong direction, far higher. Nearly 2,900 people yesterday alone died of the coronavirus. Do the math, that's 1 every 30 seconds.
The cover of the upcoming issue of Time magazine, 2020, the worst year ever. 2020, the worst year ever.
A few would disagree with that. Hospitalizations increasing in 40 states, plus D.C., Puerto Rico.
Well, good morning, Whit. Right now, 3 in 10 hospitals nationwide say their ICUs are at least 80% full, with cities like Lubbock, Texas, reporting right now you could count the number of available ICU beds on one hand. And as we watch this pressure build over the past week, the daily death count here in the U.S. rose to its highest level of any point in this pandemic.
This morning, coronavirus decimating American communities as the viral spread speeds faster. The U.S. already logging 1 million new cases in the first 5 days of December. The U.S. already logging 1 million new cases in the first 5 days of December.
Things have progressively gotten worse, and now things are just out of control.
The Thanksgiving surge experts feared is now here and just beginning to cripple states like California. As hospitalizations spike more than 80%, this medical center outside Los Angeles had to turn its lobby into a makeshift COVID ward, while another is using a triage center. The state recording so many new COVID cases every day, the numbers rival the populations of small towns.
The more terrible truth is that over 8,000 people over 8,000 people who were beloved members of their families are not coming back.
As the U.S. now averages 200,000 new infections a day, the highest positivity rate in the nation is in Idaho, where, like many other states, small hospitals are at a breaking point.
You're not immune being in rural Texas from this virus, and the hospitals aren't immune either.
With experts expecting the peak of the Thanksgiving surge to arrive next week, some of the deadliest days in U.S. history were reported last week. There were nearly as many deaths last Thursday as on 9/11. It comes as a growing number of healthcare workers contract COVID. Respiratory therapist Brianna Pierce, who has an underlying health condition, fears the virus could put her on the other side of the front line.
I know if I catch this, it could potentially kill me, so it is very stressful.
Tonight, doctors and nurses tell CBS News this surge is the worst they've seen since the pandemic began. And they may not be able to care for future patients. Nevada has the highest number of COVID hospitalizations per capita.
Renown Health in Reno, Nevada services 1 million people, over 100,000 square miles. And now the hospital is in crisis mode. Look at what they have had to resort to. They're putting patients in their parking garage.
And as we await news on the vaccine, coronavirus cases unfortunately continue to soar. Yesterday was the second highest daily total since the pandemic began. Our lead national correspondent, David Begnaud, is in Santa Monica, California for us this morning. David, good morning to you. What's the situation there in L.A. County?
Well, look, consider this analogy. If the vaccine is the fire hose and the fire department is coming, the forest is burning, and the virus is the forest burning. The virus is raging now more than ever. Consider here in LA County. This is the most populated county in the nation. COVID hospitalizations over the course of the last month have quadrupled. The post-Thanksgiving surge of coronavirus is here. It is on us, and it is pushing cases to unimaginable highs. Nationwide, COVID hospitalizations are at their highest levels ever, up nearly 80% in just the last month. This is Providence St. Mary in Apple Valley, California. There's a tent set up outside to triage those COVID patients arriving, and the lobby is now an inpatient COVID unit because they've run out of room.
I know today that we have 60 patients holding in our emergency department that are waiting for beds inside the hospital. Some of them have been there as long as 7 days.
Consider the healthcare workers who've been going nonstop for months and are getting sick. At the University of Kansas Health System, there are more than 150 staff members who are out after testing positive for the virus. And they've got another 121 who are out because they're awaiting test results. At this Minneapolis hospital, COVID patients are now being treated in rooms that are usually reserved for pediatric patients.
It's very hard, and it's our reality right now. Like, we are holding people's hands on their last breaths every day.
And then there's the work of Father Michael Lewis, a Roman Catholic priest in El Paso, Texas, which has been overwhelmed recently with coronavirus hospitalizations. He is so busy giving last rites to COVID patients who are dying almost on a daily basis that his bishop recently told him, "It is your full-time job." He is so busy giving last rites to COVID patients who are dying almost on a daily basis that his bishop recently told him, "It is your full-time job." How many of your calls to give last rites involve COVID patients?
Right now, almost all of them. I realize that I'm the last person that's going to see this person alive, that they're alone in that room. And as much as I would like to stay there and be with them as they breathe their last, I can't, because there are other patients to see.
You know, Father Mike told us many times patients, families will say to him, "Can I have a picture? I want to see that you gave them the last rites." And I said, "Well, is it because they don't believe you?" And he said, "No, not necessarily. Sometimes it's because those left to do the living simply want the tangible proof to look at as a peace of mind that their loved one was given the last rites in their final moment." Anthony.
Yeah, just some comfort, David. That's all. Thank you very much.
Tonight, the White House Coronavirus Task Force warns that the first months of COVID vaccinations won't be enough to stop the spread, and that masking up and social distancing will still be crucial throughout the winter. We get more on this from CBS's Jonathan Vigliotti.
Tonight, hospitals filling up, COVID cases continuing to break records, and the vaccine may be too late for too many. The White House Coronavirus Task Force now says the current supply of the vaccine will not substantially reduce viral spread, hospitalizations, or fatalities until 100 million Americans are immunized, not before late spring. Until then, they say behavior must change. 80% of U.S. counties reportedly saw even more people traveling this Thanksgiving than last year. This is what the Thanksgiving surge looks like.
People on ventilators, people dying. It doesn't end, and there's no way for healthcare workers to really decompress.
And deaths sharply increasing. More than a third of all Americans live near hospitals that are critically short of ICU beds. California has more than 11,000 people hospitalized and 30,000 new cases, both all-time records. COVID has also taken a disproportionate toll on Latinos due to jobs in agriculture, construction, and meatpacking.
And here in LA County, the number of hospitalizations jumped 300% in the last month.
And as hard as it is to fathom the record number of COVID deaths, public health officials are warning tonight that it will likely get worse before the situation improves.
A gut-wrenching record, more than 3,000 deaths, the highest single-day total.
Yep.
Hospitals like Methodist near Minneapolis at the breaking point.
People are dying alone.
Nurse Jenna Jacobs is watching patients pass without the comfort of someone they love.
It's very hard, and it's our reality right now. Like, we are holding people's hands on their last breaths every day.
A grim reality tonight. The CDC forecasting up to 362,000 dead by January 2nd, almost the population of Cleveland.
It's both physically and mentally exhausting. People are doing longer shifts. They're doing more shifts.
Desperate measures, from the battlefield Type 10 set up in Los Angeles to reopening plans for a long-closed Phoenix area hospital to help house the surge. Coronavirus is spreading like a wind-fueled fire.
We're going to begin with breaking news because the FDA could authorize emergency use of Pfizer's coronavirus vaccine at any moment after the White House pressured the agency to speed up the process. CBS News has learned President Trump's chief of staff told the head of the FDA, Stephen Hahn, to sign off on the vaccine now or hand in his resignation. To sign off on the vaccine now or hand in his resignation. That last-minute political pressure comes at the same time Pfizer and the federal government are poised to begin shipping nearly 3 million freezing cold vials of the vaccine to more than 600 sites across the country. Well, tonight, hospitals are awaiting those shipments of vaccines. At the same time, they're overflowing with more new patients infected by COVID-19. And as we come on the air, there is more evidence that we are now at the worst moment of this crisis. In the past week, more people have been infected in the U.S. than at any other time during the pandemic. Deaths keep skyrocketing, too. Nearly 16,000 Americans have died this week alone. And with it likely to take months to get enough Americans vaccinated to stop the virus from spreading, tonight cities and states are imposing drastic new restrictions.
Now, as we enter a new phase in the fight against the coronavirus, we are again faced with uncertainty. That's because the CEO of Pfizer, the company behind the vaccine about to be rolled out in the United Kingdom next week, admits that they don't know whether those with the jab can still transmit COVID-19 to others in an interview to NBC.
Even though I've had the protection, am I still able to transmit it to other people?
I think this is something that needs to be examined. We are not certain about that right now.
OK, let's get more on this now from Shadia Edwards-Dashty, who joins us from London. Good afternoon, Shadia. Today's statement, then, from the CEO, I suppose, just adds to the recent uncertainty about this jab.
Well, put it this way, 2 days ago it was the news we were all waiting for. It was described as a historic moment, but now it seems like it's historic for all the wrong reasons. The approval, of course, of the COVID-19 vaccination just a few days ago by the British medical regulator meant that as soon as next week the vaccine could be rolled out. But now it's been proved almost too good to be true. Of course, the United Kingdom was celebrating being world-beating, world-leading, and now it seems as though it potentially is just a guinea pig in the science of all of it. And that's because Pfizer has come out to admit that actually, while the jab might be 95% effective against COVID-19, there is by no means any guarantee that it can prevent carrying and the transmission of COVID-19 as well.
This was very, very bad for publicity. At a time when people are already nervous with all the rushed vaccines, all the cut corners, and now warnings.
Any person with a history of a significant allergic reaction to a vaccine, medicine or food should not receive the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine.
How did they miss during clinical trials that people with severe allergies best stay the heck away from Pfizer's vaccine? It was hardly a mere coincidence. 2 British nurses went down with severe reaction on the first day of public vaccination. The question it begs is, what else did Pfizer miss? That, in addition to what we already know, that the vaccine can cause pain, headaches, fatigue, fever, swelling, and potentially even facial paralysis.
Among non-serious unsolicited adverse events, there was a numerical imbalance of 4 cases of Bell's palsy in the vaccine group compared with no cases in the placebo group, though the 4 cases in the vaccine group do not represent a frequency above that expected in the general population.
Look, vaccines can take decades to test. It is a miracle that so many have been developed so quickly, a marvel of science. And rest assured, if Pfizer's vaccine wasn't as safe as possible, it wouldn't be allowed anywhere near you. Heck, the press sold it as all but a gift from God.
Pfizer makes a final push.
Drug company Pfizer says it is a great day for science.
This is really a historic day. We have Pfizer.
The company's vaccine is not only safe, it is effective.
Authorities, doctors, scientists, watchdogs are confident it's safe. More or less. And every death during clinical trials was thoroughly investigated.
A total of 6 of enrolled participants died during the reporting period. All deaths represent events that occur in the general population of the age groups where they occurred at a similar rate.
Again, it's unlikely, their words, that the Pfizer vaccine caused any deaths. But what irks me is that we learned that people had died during clinical trials and that others had developed facial paralysis. We learned this not from Pfizer, who made the vaccine, but from the FDA, whose job it is to greenlight mass vaccinations. I think it's very safe to say that people would be grateful for a little more transparency. when it comes to knowing what exactly it is that's being injected into their veins.
Now, did everyone catch that? If you take the vaccine company is saying once we put this virus in you, we can't guarantee you can't transmit this virus. In fact, we don't know. That means they're giving you a vaccine that has a virus that you can transmit. Please keep that in mind. And at this time, I would like to introduce the greatest teacher in the world, the great Kahan Yisrael, Abel Hawkins.
There you go. Hey, look at this. There you go. Hello, man. Oh, you're beautiful. You're beautiful. You're beautiful. Yahweh, look at it. Wonderful. Be seated, and we'll get started here. The world is looking for hope. There is hope out there. It's not through these 4,199 religions that are teaching the mark of the beast. And that's what they're teaching. The one that's teaching them is the Catholic Church, which started in the beginning with the mark of the beast, and is still going with the mark of the beast. Been going for 6,000 years teaching sin. That beastly system has been going now for 6,000 years teaching coronavirus. The coronavirus has been building for 6,000 years. There's no getting out of it. It's here, there's no cures. You better believe that, and you better start turning to Yahweh. He's our only hope. There is no hope besides him. Read Isaiah 45. Please. I read it the last time I spoke. We're getting a lot of requests for announcements before on Sabbath morning, maybe an hour and a half before that they'll start running something on the screen as to what time I speak. And I'm sorry I didn't get it before all the requests came in. The doctors' messages. The doctors and the nurses are, it's like they're crying, they're moaning, they're grieving, because so many of them are leaving the medical world. The doctor's message is COVID-19 doubters and non-maskers walk in my shoes, he says. The United States recorded more than 3,000 coronavirus deaths on Thursday. A record of 107,000 people are hospitalized with the virus. 294,000 people in the U.S. This is the second day in a row that more than 3,000 people have died from the virus. 3,000 people. And he says hospitals can find more beds. That's not the problem. The problem is they're out of health care workers. Do you remember somebody saying that not too long ago, too many years ago? You're going to be short on doctors and nurses? We brought it out in writing. It's in writing. It's in the history of the house of Yahweh. Meanwhile, if 3,000 people continue to die each day from COVID-19, the Christmas day, by Christmas Day, 42,000 will have lost their lives. That's a long ways. If you heard my last message, this is going to hit 6 billion, at least 6 billion people, prophecy shows. This is being poured out on right now. It's spreading through. The pouring out is my word. This pouring out is Yahweh's prophecy that he's shown his house of Yahweh, so they can tell it to you. That's the reason I'm here. That's what the prophecy showed, that the house of Yahweh would be established, and it would teach Yahweh's way versus the beast's way. The beast is God worship. That's a beastly system. Evil like the gods. I bet you don't know it out there, you preachers. Write down Genesis 3, 1 through 5, then read 5, verse 5, about 20 times till you see the gods are evil. Yahweh is not evil. He follows righteousness. The gods and Cain, which started the Roman Catholic Church of God worshipers, yes, that's all through the Holy Scriptures. I'm going to show it to you. Don't worry. I'll get to it over and over. I've showed it 1,000,000 other times already. Coronavirus will be joined now in this 2 years. It'll take, if you got those figures where I showed you percentage-wise, how many would have to be getting it every day from now till 2 years is up. You'll see it's going to be an enormous figure that you're going to see when this thing reaches its peak. It's nowhere near its peak right now. It's going up, and it's going to keep going up until the fire that the beastly system creates will destroy it. Coronavirus will be joined by 6 other plagues, and we already see these plagues, the symptoms coming in now. We see the water, the sea being poisoned. Watch for that closely. That's your next one. It's joining the COVID-19. These are real killers. These other 6 are real killers, and it ends with Revelations 18, and Yahweh says and gives you hope there. That's the only place there's hope. It's just before the last chapter in Revelations. There's 22 chapters in Revelations. In chapter 18, it tells you what to do. Yes, chapter 18, write it down. Please, read it for yourself. Then I'll give you the key scriptures the next time I speak. And we're seeing the signs of those 6. We're seeing them every day now, or just about every day. Every day I get a chance to look in the news anymore, we're seeing them. In Genesis 2, if you had a pen and pencil, a pen and paper where you could jot down, I'm speaking to everyone in TV land, we're just about reaching all over the world right now. I don't know of a nation that we're not reaching on earth right now, and I'm speaking to everyone out there. If you get a pencil and paper and write down these scriptures, I could bring you up to date in a short time, and then you could study these scriptures along with what you hear today, and they'll make a lot more sense. There's some of the scriptures, as was brought out by the Kohanas today, I noticed, that showed the warning, the judgment. That's called judgments in your scriptures. Yahweh's judgment is a prophecy. Those prophecies, as Isaiah 34:16, not one of them will fail. If it did, it'd prove Yahweh wrong. Yahweh has never been wrong in any of these prophecies. And the prophecies, if you just look at these prophecies, the prophecy of the nuclear bomb, it's a shining example. that and Babylon. Babylon is a golden rod in the hand of Yahweh. How's that? Fulfilling the prophecy that Yahweh spoke of it. Babylon, confusion. Confusion, that's what the word means. They built a city and named it Babylon. They named it confusion. But most of the time they're speaking of confusion, the prophets were, and the beginning of his kingdom was confusion. That's the ones after the flood. Yahweh said, you're following a group of men that brought this world to the first deadly wound of the beast. You're coming in behind them, Noah. Those men of old, these famous tyrants of old. You're following these men of old, of ancient times, of ancient days. Well, those men of old are the ones, he said, that defiled the earth before you. I'm giving you a chance. I took you out of Egypt. I gave you laws to keep the earth from being defiled. And now you're doing the same thing as the men of old was doing. Well, it's confusion. That's a great word for it right there. Well, anyway, Yahweh gave, write down Genesis 2, verses 9, then verses 16 and 17. You'll see that Yahweh gave the evil. He says, don't go near this tree of evil. And then in chapter 3 of Genesis said, evil, it's the gods. Evil like the gods. Why is it that the 4,199 religions on earth can't get those two scriptures and put them together and see what they mean? Don't follow this. Don't follow this, or you're going to cause yourself trouble now. Then here you are weeping and moaning and groaning. Oh, my pains are so great. My anguish, I can't even think anymore. My anguish is so great. It just weights me down. Well, you should have listened. You should have listened and done what Yahweh told you to do. Then you would have Yahweh's peace within you right now. You would be rejoicing for tomorrow instead of so sad today, said, I'm going to give up. Well, he warns you there. I gave his warning to our forefathers that brought down the earth, brought it to coronavirus that caused the flood. Yes, coronavirus caused the flood, making a deadly wound in the beast to give mankind, that he brings out of this coronavirus system by building an ark and sitting through it with his family until the coronavirus was buried deep in the ground, deep in the Arctic ice, which is now melting, by the way. Wow. And ice freezing, it doesn't hurt the coronavirus. Cover it up with dirt. It'll hold it, and that's what's being done. It's being held, but now it's creeping out. Everything is changing. The Arctic is letting it out of the frozen waters. It has been frozen for years. It's releasing it. It's going into the ocean. It's in our waters right now. And it's going along with the nuclear bomb. All of it's poison. The poison of the nuclear bomb, have you seen that? It's enormous, the amount of poison from the nuclear bomb that they're going to release, that they have been releasing for years, keeping it a secret. Okay. Yahweh says to you, Yahweh say to you, will cause coronavirus and 6 other plagues. You will cause it. You will cause the coronavirus and 6 other plagues to go with it. How? How? I don't want to read all of this, but I want you to turn over to Isaiah 24, and you'll be familiar with some of it, but now, reading it today with the knowledge you have already of the past sermons now, I'm just going to point out to you in this chapter, because I want to cover this chapter before I quit today. But Yahweh shows this first part, and I've often read it. I covered the 7 last plagues many times. I've covered the coronavirus several times before, but now I want you to read it with what you know about coronavirus. The cause. This is the place that he shows you all the becauses of 4,199 religions following the beastly system. They're not following Yahweh. Most of them don't even know his name. It's there. It's plenty of places. All they have to do is just look in a dictionary, encyclopedia. Unger's Bible Dictionary even tells them the name Yahweh should have never been replaced with the words Lord and God. The word Lord means dead rabbi. So you're worshiping dead rabbis? Yes. When you worship Lord, it has nothing to do with Yahweh. In fact, it's evil. That's why you see them over there right now wearing these things, dressing like Yeshua said they love to dress, but they're practicing things that are bringing on the coronavirus. Yes, they have the mark of the beast. It's all over the land of Israel. Yahweh is not worshipped there in the land of Israel. No, he's not worshipped throughout the world except by congregations of the house of Yahweh. Yes, we have a lot of congregations. Well, in verse 2, he says, verse 1, behold, Yahweh makes the earth, that he allows the earth to be made empty. Why? This was brought out by the great Kohan Yehuda Hawkins today. I hope you got it. Some others too brought it out. Yahweh is showing you, he's letting you go your own way, as he did in Genesis 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, where Cain actually became a priest and started preaching it. From the beginning, he scattered abroad the inhabitants. It will be as with the people, so with the priest, so with all of you priests. Yes, you're getting it. We know you're getting it. Coming next, you're going to get one that's really bad. The 7th is the worst. That one will burn you up, and it's going to. In this 2 years, yes, in this 2 years, we are at the end. There's no other end. This is it. Well, it's going to be with the people, so with the priests, with the servants, the owners, the buyers, the sellers, the borrowers. He covers you all. The land will be utterly emptied and utterly plundered, for Yahweh has spoken this word. Spoken, and it is written, as Yeshua said in Matthew. The earth mourns. Oh boy, is it mourning right now? You see that? You can't turn the television set on anymore without seeing it. We showed you a little bit of it here today. The earth mourns and fades away. The world mourns and fades away. And the haughty people, even the haughtiest people of the earth, now languish. The earth also is defiled. Did you get that? Defiled. As the people before you, as the ones who possess these nations before you. It's defiled like it was from the olden times. And getting worse every year. It's defiled, bringing confusion. Babylon. Remember that word Babylon, because when we get into Revelations, that was mentioned also today. It gives you the prophecy all through the Holy Scriptures and shows you the end. The end. Revelation. That's the end. Revelations 18 is the fiery end. It's going to burn you up in 1 hour. 1 hour's burning. The only protection from that is Yahweh himself. The earth also is defiled. It's defiled. Get that in your head. Your earth you're standing on, you have defiled it. It's no longer able to support you. It's like it was in the days of Noah. Surely you've read chapter 6 and 7 of Genesis. Go back and read it again and see what Yahweh says about it and what brought the flood. This is what brought the flood. Yahweh fixed it where another flood would not occur. But he's still letting you live your life the way you want it with all of your sins. All of your sins. War. Remember war? Started with Cain, war. If you look at Micaiah 4, you'll see that the house of Yahweh, once Yahweh's way is taught, there'll be no more war. War is it. The killer. You think Yahweh's bringing war? Look at the nations and what they're doing, what they're getting ready for. You think they just built those nuclear bombs to play around with in the backyard? Did you know that prophecy says they're going to be used? Now I'm speaking to you preachers out there. You really need to get behind me and start helping in spreading this word to your people. Then they will be able to say that John Doe, or whatever your name is, helped me to see this. And they'll be alive to tell you, John Doe. But if you don't, John, you're going to be a dead John and never to live again. Verse 5. The earth is defiled under the inhabitants of it because they have transgressed the laws. Why are you telling the people the laws are done away with? Why don't you tell them to keep the Sabbath? To read Isaiah 58, it all starts there. Hebrews 10 tells you, don't forsake this assembling of yourselves together, as the manner of some is. If you sin willfully after I've told you this, I'm telling you, Sunday is not the seventh-day Sabbath. The Ten Commandments, your Savior says in the very last chapter of Revelation 22, verse 12, he says, it's me speaking to you, the Savior. Verse 14 says, blessed are you who keep the commandments. That's even in your King James Version. You've changed the ordinance. You've broken the everlasting covenant. You've rejected Yahweh all this way. Because of this curse. Curse? That word is plague. Yeah, the word right there, it means diseases or plagues. And we're in the 7 last plagues right now. This is Isaiah 24. This started with the men of old. The same thing that we're suffering now, the defilement, started with the men of old. The Cain, who was a preacher of God worship. The Catholic Church are preachers of God worship. They worship all gods. Because of this, the curse, the plagues that you're seeing right now, the coronavirus, and the next one to come, your water. You're going to see how man can't live without water. Yeah, you're going to learn this is quite a blessing from Yahweh. Of course, it's going to be too late for some because you won't repent. I know that you won't because the Scripture says you won't. Revelations 19. That don't mean that everybody can't. Everybody that wants to. It's your desire, you want to, you can do it. Acts 3:19 says, those who will. 1 Yochanan, or 1 John 3, those who will. Because of this curse of plagues, chapter 16 of Revelations and chapter 15, that tells you it lasts 5 months. That's one of the identifying marks. Makes you want to die, but it don't kill. And that's the first thing that we told you, and the doctors followed us up on it, that it don't kill. The coronavirus does not kill you. And they told it, they came right behind the house of Yahweh saying, hey, this doesn't kill. It doesn't kill anybody. What kills you is the sins you had built up in your body before the coronavirus hit you. And that's what they brought out. It's the same thing, the Scripture. You see how that identifies Yahweh's prophecies as true and believable and trustworthy? Yeah, it proves they're true. Because of this, the curse has devoured the earth, and they that dwell therein are desolate. Therefore, the inhabitants of the earth are burned. Revelations 18 now, because of this coronavirus and six others in this very same verse, verse 6. Because of this, the burning. That's the seventh and last plague. Is the great burning. Revelations 18. And few men left. That few men left shows to be about 2 billion people. We have about 8 billion. 6 billion people. 6 billion people. Figure up how long it would take at the speed they're dying now, and you'll know how fast it's got to speed up to cover 6 billion people. They're going to be dying like flies, as Psalms 91 says, but it won't come near you if you Acts 3:19. Verse 7, merry-hearted sigh, the merry-hearted. Oh, they're feeding you a bunch of baloney this Christmas. They're going to have you looking for hopes that's not there, dreams that are not coming. But that's all they're trusting in. They have nothing to go on. We have Yahweh's word to go on. We know what's going to take place. There's no questions here. There's no questions. It's going to take place. It's already taking place. Why would anyone doubt it with everything that is taking place right now? Verse 8, the tambourines ceases, rejoice ends, joy ceases. All of that's taking place. And you're going to have a merry Christmas? Yahweh says it's going to be the worst you ever saw. And the next one is going to be the end that you will see. That's the truth that's coming. Why do you lie to the people? Why don't you tell them the truth and let my people go? Let them come and repent and be saved. And look at verse 10. Cities of what? Babylon. The people of old. Cities of confusion. Cities of confusion. They're all the cities. It's not hospital beds we need, dummy. We need nurses and doctors. We're out of them. We don't have enough to cover you. If you get it, call your doctor and go home. Stay home. This is the messages we're getting from the city. We don't know whether to go back and shut it off, shut down, or let it go and go forward. We're in confusion. We don't know how to make a decision. Do you get that? City is left desolation. That's verse 12. Destruction, desolation of nurses and doctors, people who have lost their jobs, their houses. I don't know, but I think you probably got some of that. Foreclosures, living on the streets, sure to die if you're living on the streets. Did we get any of that today? Huh? Yes. Okay. City is left desolation, and it's getting worse now every day, here in America too. Destruction also. They're wanting to call out to National Guard. I think they're trying to keep that quiet, but they're still trying. They haven't stopped it. Verse 14, they will lift up their voices. They will sing for the majesty of Yahweh. They will cry aloud from the sea for this cause. Glorify Yahweh in the fires. You yourselves don't ask the silly question that the leaders in Israel. We went there for years testifying to them. The high up in their armed services, we went to the tops. The biggest question, why would a God allow this? Well, that shows you how far they are from the Creator. They still think that gods are running the country. And, of course, they are, but they think it's the Creator. And he said, why would he let this earth? He says, I see more of the suffering than you do. And he says, I'm in it every day. But he said, if there is a loving God, why would he allow this? And of course, I would explain to them why he's allowing it. The only way, if he stopped it now, they could say, oh, we could have worked this out, the way we were going. We miss our God worship. It's more desirable. Well, he's going to give them, Yahweh has promised them full freedom, not taking anything away at all, letting them go their own way. No, we're not going to stop you. We're not going to force you to do anything. We'll tell you the way that you should go. We'll tell you what future is held for you, but we won't force you to live up to it. You go your own way, and I'll tell you how it's going to turn out. That's the judgments called prophecy of Yahweh. Yahweh's judgments is given to us, and we see them, they're prophecies that are coming to pass. Verse 16, the treacherous dealers have dealt treacherously. We see that, and it's complained on by every nation. Verse 17, fear and the pit is what awaits you when you try to go to another place that is safe, that you think is safe. The snares are up on all the inhabitants of the earth. Verse 17, verse 18, fear, the pit, the snare, for the windows from on high are open, and the foundations of the earth are shaken. That's what Yahshua said. The heavens will be shaken. You're seeing that right now. If you've been watching the astronomy, you're seeing it already. They're seeing it and reporting it right now. Verse 19, the earth is utterly broken down. This is what we're seeing, the whole earth. It's in every nation now, utterly broken down and getting worse every day. Earth is dissolved, clean. The earth is shaken exceedingly. All of these things are going to take place in this 2 years. The earth will reel to and fro like a drunkard, and will sway like a hut. The transgressions that you lawbreakers, you law-breaking preachers, transgressions. 1 John, King James Version, 1 John 3, 1 through 10. Sin is a transgression of Yahweh's law. The transgression in it will be heavy upon it, and will fall and not rise again. That's the end. That's the end, unless Yahweh does something else, which of course he's promised to do, but after you destroy yourself. Verse 22, they will be gathered together like prisoners, or gathered in the pit, and will be shut up in the prison. I've explained this before for many days. Verse 23, then the moon will be confounded. That's the prophecy of the time of the nuclear bomb that was covered by the Savior in Matthew 24. Be confounded, be hidden, be darkened. And the sun ashamed, it won't give its light. When? That should be then instead of when. Yahweh of hosts will reign. Now, it says Mount Zion. Don't be fooled about this meaning. Mount Zion. Mount Zion is a hill named after a word, a word that applied to the righteousness of people who lift up holy hands to Yahweh. If you remember, Yahshua said, the time is at hand. From now on, the Father will not be worshipped in this mountain, nor in Israel. He won't be worshipped. Yahweh is not worshipped in Jerusalem, in Israel, in the Mount Zion that stands, the little hill that stands for this word right here. But the word means Yahweh will be worshiped by those, the word Zion, those who lift up holy hands to Yahweh. But he's not being worshiped there now. Well, that pretty well spells it out, and I would like for you to keep that in your mind, and I think I'm going to close on that one right there, and then we'll pick up from there next sermon, because praise Yahweh, what I want to do, what we've got to do, what we're assigned to do by Yahweh is to show you everything that was prophesied is taking place right now. And we'll bring you the record, bring out the records, not only in the news is, has a great deal of it, and we'll show you how the prophecies are being fulfilled in this time period. Loud and clear, everybody knows it. Everybody can see it. A 5 or 6 year old, you know, we're having especially, this is what impresses me. I never ever thought the things I did when I was in my teens was righteously taken as righteousness before anyone. But I see the teenagers here at the house of Yahweh, they're actually teaching righteousness and living it as an example. Now, that don't mean you can't be led off, you know. I mean, I've seen people who were brought up in righteousness, and of course I've seen them get pulled away. They still got a chance, you know. I mean, you can repent and come on, and we'll help you. We'll tell you what to do. We'll help you with what you're doing. But we won't do it for you. You know, Yahweh only allows us to do so much. If we forced you to do something, you wouldn't get the credit. And you need to get yourself out of this hole you've got yourself in, and you can do it. We'll tell you how. We will assist you as you put forth effort. Yahweh bless you, and I'll turn the services back to the next song leader. I love you.
If y'all raise your hands. Heavenly Father Yahweh, this is Deacon Abaya. Heavenly Father, Deacon Benny, for the Cons. The Pastor Shaka, the Shimasa. I thank you for this great Sabbath that you bless us with. Please bless the food and drink we're about to partake of. Please bless Pastor with the full use of a subconscious mind connection. Please release Kanye from prison. I thank you for all the things you've allowed us to learn today. Please also take care of everything we've learned today and everything we learned in the classes today. Please make us how you want us to be, because that's how you want to be. And all these things in Yeshua's name. Hallelujah. Praise Yahweh.